Hello everyone, good afternoon, welcome to this new lecture in our program on American literature. My name is Fuzi Slisli and I will be your instructor. Today's lecture is lecture number 8 and we will be talking about Mark Twain, a celebrated and famous American writer and essayist, and we're going to look at a short story called The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County. Let's talk a little bit about Mark Twain first. His real name is Samuel Longhorn Clemens. He was an American storyteller, entrepreneur, publisher, and lecturer. He used the pen name Mark Twain and several other names for his writing. He was famous for many of his works, including, best known is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, among many other pieces of writing he is famous for. In 1861, Samuel Clemens avoided the brewing Civil War by going west. He took his first writing job as a reporter in the Virginia City Territorial Enterprise. And Twain combined his writing with public lecturing and foreign travel, acquiring, in the meantime, an international reputation as humoristic frontier philosopher. So basically he just, didn't want to go to the Civil War, didn't want to enlist in the war, and found a job as a writer as a reporter in the Virginia City Territorial Enterprise. And there he combined writing with public lecturing, public speaking, and travel, foreign travel. And soon, very quickly, he acquired an international reputation as a humoristic frontier philosopher. Frontier because America at that time did not have a fixed frontier. America's frontier or border was still moving. And in that movement of the frontier, there was an entire culture of adventure, of settlers, of course also of lawlessness, because the new acquired territories were still not under the legal authority of the government, so there was lawlessness. This is where the culture of the cowboys come from, the people who search for gold, and so on and so forth. Mark Twain acquired this reputation of being a humoristic frontier philosopher. By 1900, Twain had become America's foremost celebrity. He was invited to attend ship launchings, anniversary gatherings, political conventions, and countless dinners. In his early life, he worked as a typesetter, a miner, and a riverboat pilot. So Mark Twain, as you can see, gathered an amazing set of experiences from various jobs and various experiences he gathered throughout his life. The story, The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County, here Twain combines humor with strong narrative and social criticism. And it's a hallmark of all his writing. So you find humor, you find a strong narrative, and you find social criticism. Twain's first important work, The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County, was first published in the New York Saturday Press on November 18, 1865. He based his story on a story he heard at Angel's Hotel in Angels Camp, California, where he had spent some time as a miner. So keep in mind, he was also a miner in California, where people used to mine for gold mostly. And he heard this story at Angels Hotel in Angels Camp in California while he was working as a miner. The main characteristic of this story, of this text, is that it's a satire. And a satire is a literary way of ridiculing or making fun of a weakness or a vice in order to expose or correct this vice. So the satire here, what is being made fun of with derision here, is gambling. The celebrated jumping frog of Calaveras County is a satire that makes fun of the character of Simon, who has a problem with gambling. Simon gambles on anything. One way of sharing this is how he tells this in the passage. Heck, if he sees two birds perched on a fence, he'll bet which bird will fly away first. So he is so addicted to gambling that if he sees two birds perched on a fence, he will gamble on which one will fly away first. This shows that Jim's addiction is so bad that he will bid on whatever he can. Anything he would bet on it. It's not even the attraction of money, it's the act of bidding, of gambling itself that he seems to be addicted to. The other example of how Twain uses satire in this passage is through the use of regional dialect of the West. The dialect of that people use when they speak in the west of the United States. One way to show this is by Twain purposely using inventive punctuation, misspellings, right? Like when they say y'all, instead of saying you all, it's y'all. So he reflects this regional dialect of the West Country through creative punctuation, misspellings, loose sentence structure, etc. This was how Twain shows Western dialect. It almost makes the West look uneducated. The themes of the story, well, the first one is lies and deceit, of course. One of the main themes in The Jumping Frog is deceitfulness, deceit, and lies, as well as the fine line that exists between cunningness and deceitfulness. In the story, Jim Smiley often uses ordinary or unnoticeable animals to win his bets. Underdogs that come back and win at the last minute. His use of these ordinary animals gets other people to bet against his animals and ultimately lose their money when his animals win. Mark Twain's story shows that the people in the story are deceitful and lie in order to get what they want. Another important theme in the story is cleverness. The distinction between honest cleverness and dishonest cleverness is another theme, right? Clever is good, but where is the line that separates honest cleverness from dishonest cleverness? Jim Smiley is clever in how he fools others with the animals he uses while he bets. Although he is being clever, Despite not being particularly well educated or well spoken, he is not lying to or cheating his opponents like the stranger does. Jim Smiley is an honest, clever person. He's clever, but he's honest. The stranger that comes in the end is clever, but in a dishonest way. What this comes down to is morality, ethics, right? Cleverness alone is not dishonest. Being clever is not dishonest. But the way the stranger in the end wins, the frog bet is clever in a dishonest way. This story belongs to a literary school and a literary tradition in the history of American literature that is conventionally known as realism. Most of Mark Twain's work belongs to the tradition of realism because Mark Twain wants to capture life as it is, the life of everyday, average everyday life kind of people. The way they speak, the way they think, the way they deal with each other in a very realistic way. So he tries not to use any filters and tries in a way to use literature as a mirror of life, as Shakespeare would say. Mark Twain's writings were different from many of the writings of his time. Most writers in his time wrote romantic or unrealistic stories. This is what was common at the time when Mark Twain was writing. Most writers wrote romantic or unrealistic stories about people who seemed to be perfect and grand. Princes and kings and heroes and people who are larger than life. Twain's characters were real to life. They were like genuine people from like average everyday life people. Examples of the types of people one might meet every day. His characters spoke in real dialects and were ordinary people with ordinary jobs, ordinary ideas, and ordinary lives. He also included characters that came from different backgrounds and levels of education, which was different from romantic writers whose characters were all from similar backgrounds and from similar level of education and never mixed with other classes. There is a link at the end of this PowerPoint presentation that can take you where you can read and listen to the story. It's a short story, it's very easy to read. So you have to read it, you should read it, otherwise this lecture will not make sense to you. And you can also listen to it to get a sense of the dialects and how Mark Twain uses dialects in his story. I hope you enjoy it. It's a fun little story to read, and I shall see you in the next lecture. Thank you for coming, and have a wonderful day.